I never thought I'd be one of those people airing their marriage drama online, but here I am. I'm 36 years old and my husband Tom is 39. We've been together for 7 years and married for five. Tom has two kids, Jack, 14, and Emma, 12, from his previous marriage to Eliza, who is 38. They split up about 8 years ago, and according to Tom, it was a mostly amicable divorce because they just grew apart. From the beginning, I always knew Tom's kids were his priority, and I totally respected that. I don't have any children of my own, but I've always tried my best to be a good stepmom. Being a step parent isn't always easy, but I put in the effort. Jack and Emma are good kids, and though we've had our ups and downs, which I think is normal, I felt like we were in a pretty good place. They live with their mom most of the time, but we have them every other weekend and on some holidays. Tom works as an IT project manager and makes decent money, and I work as a nurse practitioner. Financially, we do okay. We've always kept separate accounts for our personal spending, but we also have a joint savings account that we set up for emergencies, home repairs, and eventually a vacation. Over the past 3 years, we managed to save about $42,000 in that account. It's not a fortune, but it represents a lot of hard work, sacrifices, and smart budgeting from both of us. One thing that has been a bit of a sore spot in our marriage is travel. I love traveling. I've always wanted to go to Europe, especially Italy. It's been a dream of mine for as long as I can remember. Tom knew this from the start. It's something I talked about before we even got married. But every time I brought it up over the years, he always had a reason why we couldn't go. It was always, we can't afford it right now. Or maybe next year when we've saved more. Or the kids' college funds are more important. And look, I totally get that. College is a big deal. And I know raising kids is expensive, but at the same time, I kept putting my dream on hold, thinking that eventually we'd make it happen. I never complained too much because I wanted to be understanding. I figured we were in this together and that someday, when the time was right, we'd finally take that trip. I tried to be patient, but as the years went by, I started to feel like someday was never going to come. The moment everything fell apart happened about 2 weeks ago. It started with what seemed like a simple conversation. Tom told me he needed to take some money from our joint savings for something important for the kids. He was vague, which wasn't like him, but I trusted him, so I didn't press for details. I figured it was for something like new laptops for school, sports equipment, or maybe even an extracurricular activity. I didn't think much of it. A few days later, I was scrolling through my social media feed when something caught my eye. Eliza had posted a bunch of photos from what looked like an incredibly extravagant birthday party. It wasn't just a casual dinner or a small gathering. This was a full blown event at a high end venue with catering, a live band, and fancy decorations. The caption read something along the lines of, "The most amazing 38th birthday ever. Thank you, Tom, for making it so special. I can't wait for our upcoming European adventure." My heart sank. What European adventure? Why was Tom throwing his ex wife a party this extravagant? He had never even mentioned planning anything for her birthday, let alone a full blown celebration at a luxury venue. My stomach twisted as I scrolled through the comments. People were gushing about how incredible the night looked, how lucky she was to have such a thoughtful co parent, and how the trip to Europe was going to be unforgettable. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. After all these years of being told that a trip to Europe was too expensive, after saving up so carefully, and after Pushing my own dreams aside to be responsible, I was now seeing that Tom had not only spent a huge chunk of our savings on a lavish birthday party for Eliza, but had also booked her and the kids a 2-week trip to Europe, the very thing I had been asking for years. The realization was almost too much to process. That evening, when Tom got home, I confronted him. I showed him the post and asked him to explain. At first, he got defensive. He accused me of snooping on Eliza's social media. I told him it wasn't snooping. It showed up on my feed because we had mutual friends. That's when he finally admitted it. Yes, he had planned and paid for the entire party. Yes, he had booked a European vacation for Eliza and the kids as a surprise gift. I was stunned. I couldn't even find the right words to respond at first. When I finally asked him how much it had all cost, he told me $8,000 for the party and $20,000 for the trip. Almost $28,000 of our hard-earned joint savings. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. For years, he had dismissed my dream of going to Europe. He had said it was impractical, too expensive, and that we needed to focus on more important things. But now, he had taken that same dream and gifted it to his ex-wife? How was I supposed to feel about that? When I pushed for an explanation, he brushed it off as something he did for the kids. He told me Jack and Emma had been wanting to see Europe, and he thought it would be a great educational experience for them. When I asked why he hadn't planned the trip with me included, he said Eliza was just better at that kind of thing, and that the kids were more comfortable traveling with their mom. He acted like it was completely logical, like I should just understand and move on. But how could I? It wasn't just about the money, although that was a huge part of it. It was the betrayal, the disregard for my feelings, and the realization that my dreams had never been as important to him as his ex-wife's happiness. It felt like a slap in the face, a clear message that her wants and needs came first, while mine were just background noise. The next few days were tense. I tried to talk to him about it, but he didn't seem to get why I was so upset. He kept repeating things like, "It's for the kids," and "You're making this into something it's not." But the truth was, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than he was admitting. That party wasn't for the kids. It was for her. The trip wasn't just about the kids either. It was framed as a birthday gift for Eliza. I knew I couldn't stay in that house, not after everything that had happened, so after a few days of going back and forth, I made a decision. There was about $14,000 left in our joint savings. I withdrew $12,000 and used it as a security deposit and 3 months' rent on a small house not too far away. I packed up my essentials, and while Tom was at work, I left. When he found out, he lost it. He called me over and over and left angry voicemails and sent text after text accusing me of stealing from him and abandoning our marriage over nothing. He said I was jealous of Eliza, that I was punishing him for being a good father, and even went so far as to suggest I had always resented his kids, and this was my way of proving it. That couldn't be further from the truth. I have always supported his relationship with his kids. I have always tried to be understanding about his co-parenting dynamic with Eliza. But I also believe that boundaries are important, and this was a massive boundary violation, spending nearly $30,000 of our shared money on a party and a dream vacation for his ex-wife. That was too much. Now I'm sitting in my rental house trying to make sense of everything. I don't know if I overreacted. I don't know if this is something we can come back from. Was I wrong to move out? Was I overreacting to what happened? Is this salvageable, or has it revealed fundamental issues in our relationship that can't be fixed? AITA for using our remaining joint savings to move out? I genuinely don't know what to do next. Update 1. First, I just want to say thank you to everyone for all the support, advice, and kind words. I was honestly overwhelmed by the response to my original post. I never expected it to get so much attention. But reading through your comments has really helped me gain some clarity, even though I'm still in the middle of processing everything. Since I first posted, a few things have happened. For one, Tom has finally stopped bombarding me with angry messages. After days of constant texts and voicemails, he finally called me, and this time he was calmer. He said he wanted to have a real conversation without all the fighting. I agreed, hoping we could at least talk things through like adults. During the conversation, Tom admitted that he could now see why I was so upset. He acknowledged that spending our joint savings without telling me was wrong, and he even said he understood why I felt betrayed. But despite that, he still kept insisting that his intentions were pure and that everything he did was for the kids. According to him, the birthday party and the trip to Europe weren't really about Eliza, but about making Jack and Emma happy. He said he never meant to hurt me and that he thought I would understand why he did what he did. Then he asked me to come home. He said he missed me and wanted us to work things out. He even suggested marriage counseling, which honestly surprised me because he's never been the type to believe in therapy. He told me that we could fix this, that he didn't want to lose me over one mistake. I told him that I appreciated him reaching out and that I needed time to think. I wasn't ready to move back in yet, and I didn't want to make any rash decisions. The second I said that, his mood changed. He got defensive again and accused me of holding a grudge and being vindictive. He said that if I truly loved him, I would forgive him and understand that the kids will always come first. He kept saying that I was making a big deal out of something that should have been a non-issue. And that's where the problem lies. This isn't about me being upset that his kids come first. I have always known that, and I've always supported it. This is about the fact that he prioritized his ex-wife's birthday celebration and her wishes over our shared financial goals, over my feelings, and over my own dreams that I had put on hold for years. It's not about the kids. It's about the choices he made and the way he completely disregarded me in the process. The fact that he still doesn't seem to understand that distinction makes me wonder if we're even on the same page anymore. I'm starting to question whether this is something we can fix or if it's a sign that we're just fundamentally incompatible. In a strange twist, I got a text from Eliza yesterday. She said she was sorry about the awkward situation and that she had no idea the party and trip were coming from our joint savings. According to her, Tom had told her he'd received a large bonus at work and wanted to use it to give the kids a special experience with her. She said she wouldn't have accepted if she'd known that it would cause problems in our marriage. I don't know whether to believe her or not. On one hand, it's completely plausible that Tom misrepresented the situation to her. He had no problem lying to me, so why wouldn't he lie to her too? But on the other hand, it does feel a little strange that she would reach out to me directly instead of just talking to Tom about it. Part of me wonders if they coordinated this message to try and make me feel guilty about moving out, or to smooth things over in a way that benefited them. On top of all this, I also heard from Jack, my stepson. He sent me the sweetest text telling me he misses me and asking when I'm coming home. That completely broke my heart. I explained to him as gently as I could that I just needed some time to sort things out with his dad, and that none of this was his or Emma's fault. I reassured him that I still care about him and his sister very much, no matter what happens between me and Tom. Right now, I'm trying to take things one day at a time. I've scheduled an appointment with a therapist next week because I think I need an objective perspective to help me figure out what I really want and whether this marriage is worth fighting for. I've also reached out to a financial advisor to get a better understanding of what my options are regarding our shared assets and accounts. The rental house is peaceful, though, I'll admit it does get lonely at times. But for now, I'm focusing on self care, reflecting on everything that's happened, and giving myself permission to process my feelings without Tom's influence. I'll update again when there are significant developments. Update 2. Things have taken an unexpected turn over the last few days. After my conversation with Eliza, something just didn't sit right with me. The whole situation felt off, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more going on than Tom was letting on. Why, after years of being cautious with our savings, would he suddenly splurge on an extravagant party and an expensive European vacation for his ex wife? It didn't make sense. The more I thought about it, the more I felt like I needed answers. So I decided to do a little digging. I reached out to a mutual friend who had attended Eliza's birthday party and casually asked about the event. I wasn't expecting much, but what she told me left me stunned. Apparently, during the party, Tom had made a toast, and not just any toast, an emotional, deeply personal speech where he talked about how much he never stopped caring for Eliza and how he wanted to make up for lost time. My friend said that people in the room exchanged awkward glances because it felt more like a declaration of love than just a friendly gesture. She found it especially odd given that I was his wife and I hadn't even been there. Hearing this made my stomach turn. I hadn't even known about the party until I saw it on social media. And now I was finding out that my husband was making heartfelt speeches about his ex wife. I felt humiliated and betrayed all over again. Armed with this new information, I decided to confront Tom once more. This time, I wasn't going to beat around the bush. I needed the truth. When he got home that night, I didn't wait. I asked him outright if there was something more going on between him and Eliza. At first, he looked shocked and immediately went on the defensive. He accused me of being paranoid, overreacting, letting my emotions cloud my judgment. He insisted that everything he had done was for the kids and that I was making something out of nothing. But when I told him what our friend had overheard at the party, the fight went out of him. I watched as his face fell, and in that moment, I knew. After a long silence, he finally admitted it. He told me that he and Eliza had been reconnecting over the past few months. He swore that nothing physical had happened between them, but he admitted that they had been texting frequently, meeting for coffee, and even having long conversations when the kids weren't around. He said he had been confused about his feelings, and that planning the party and the Europe trip had been his way of seeing if there was still something there. I was devastated, but also oddly relieved to finally have the truth. All those times when he was supposedly working late or had errands to run suddenly made sense. The pieces were falling into place, and the picture they formed was heartbreaking. It was like a puzzle I had been struggling to put together for months, and now that it was complete, I almost wished I had never seen it. I asked him point blank if he wanted to be with Eliza again. He hesitated, looking down at his hands as if the answer might be written there. Finally, he mumbled that he was confused and didn't want to hurt anyone. And that was when I realized he wasn't worried about hurting me. He was worried about making the wrong choice between me and her. I felt like an option, not a partner, and that was unbearable. I told him his decision and dishonesty had already hurt me deeply, and that I deserved better than to be someone's backup plan. If he couldn't choose me wholeheartedly, then I wasn't going to stand around waiting for him to make up his mind. That night, I did something I probably should have done weeks ago. I contacted a lawyer. Not necessarily to file for divorce right away, but to understand my rights and options. I needed to know what I was entitled to, how to protect myself financially, and what steps I should be taking if this marriage truly was beyond saving. The lawyer confirmed that withdrawing money from a joint account for personal use during marital difficulties isn't illegal in our state, but advised me to keep detailed records of all financial transactions going forward. It was a relief to hear that I hadn't done anything wrong, despite what Tom was telling people. Meanwhile, Tom has been going around telling family and friends that I overreacted to a simple gesture for his kids, and am now punishing him by consulting with a lawyer. He's painting himself as the victim, which is both frustrating and hurtful. Some of our mutual friends have taken his side, suggesting that I'm being unreasonable and that marriage is about compromise. What they don't understand is that I've been compromising for years. I've put my dreams on hold, accepted that his kids would always come first, and tried to be understanding about his co parenting relationship with Eliza. But this betrayal, both financial and emotional, goes beyond normal compromise. This wasn't about parenting. This was about deception, misplaced priorities, and a complete disregard for my feelings. For now, I'm staying in the rental house. I've informed my work about the situation and have taken a week of personal leave to focus on my mental health and next steps. I need time to process everything without Tom's influence clouding my judgment. I'm also considering whether to reach out to Eliza directly for a more in depth conversation. Part of me wants to hear her side of the story, to understand if she knew more than she let on. But another part of me worries that it will just stir up more drama, and I've had enough of that already. I feel like I'm at a crossroads, and the path forward isn't clear yet. But for the first time in a long time, I'm making decisions based on self respect rather than fear or habit. I don't know exactly what the future holds, but I do know that I won't allow myself to be treated like this any longer. I'll update again when I know more. Update 3. The situation has escalated rapidly over the past few days, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything that's happened. It feels like my world has been flipped upside down, and I don't even know where to begin. 2 days ago, I made the decision to meet with Eliza in person. After everything I had learned, I felt that a face to face conversation might provide the clarity I desperately needed. Text messages and secondhand information could only tell me so much, and I wanted to hear directly from her what had really been going on. We arranged to meet at a neutral coffee shop, somewhere public but quiet enough for a serious conversation. To my surprise, Eliza was incredibly forthcoming. I had been bracing myself for defensiveness or hostility, but instead, she seemed genuinely open and even a little remorseful. She didn't try to sugarcoat things or make excuses. Instead, she confirmed what I had already suspected but had hoped wasn't true. She and Tom had been growing closer over the past several months in ways that extended beyond just co parenting. According to her, it all started innocently enough. Their conversations during pickups and drop offs had gradually become longer and more personal. What used to be brief exchanges about logistics and schedules turned into deeper discussions about their lives, their regrets, and their shared past. She admitted there had been moments of connection that felt like more than just two people co parenting their kids, though she insisted that there had been no physical affair. But the real bombshell came when she revealed something that shook me to my core. Tom had actually suggested that they try again as a couple. This wasn't just him reminiscing about the past or feeling nostalgic. About a month before the birthday party, he had explicitly brought up the idea of giving their relationship another shot. He had told her that he sometimes wondered if they had given up too easily on their marriage, and he questioned whether they still had a chance at making things work. Eliza told me she had been hesitant. She didn't immediately jump at the idea, not just because of me, but because she knew that the same fundamental issues that led to their divorce hadn't magically disappeared. She wasn't sure if rekindling their relationship was truly the right decision, even if Tom was pushing for it. To back up her story, she showed me text messages from Tom, actual receipts of everything she was saying. In these messages, he talked about missed opportunities and how he still cared deeply for her. He referenced the birthday party and the Europe trip as a chance for them to reconnect as a family and see if they could make it work this time. Reading those words felt like a punch to the gut. All these years of him telling me we couldn't afford a trip to Europe, of brushing off my dreams, and yet, when it came to Eliza, he was willing to spend thousands just to create the perfect setting for a romantic reconciliation. I left the meeting with Eliza feeling strangely calm. The uncertainty that had been eating away at me for weeks was gone, replaced by a painful but much needed clarity. This wasn't just about money or even about a thoughtless mistake. Tom had been actively pursuing a future with his ex wife while keeping me completely in the dark. He had been making plans, taking steps, and spending our joint savings to build a life with someone else. All while I had been standing on the sidelines, completely oblivious. It hurt more than I can even put into words, but at least now I knew the truth. When I pulled up to the rental house that evening, I wasn't expecting anything unusual, but as I got out of the car, I spotted a familiar figure sitting on the front porch. It was Tom. He looked exhausted. His eyes were red, his posture slumped, his hands clasped together as if he were deep in thought. The moment he saw me, he stood up quickly, his face filled with regret. Before I could say a word, he started speaking, his voice unsteady. He went on about how he had made a terrible mistake, that his emotions had clouded his judgment. He said he had let nostalgia and misplaced guilt convince him that reconnecting with Eliza was somehow the right thing to do for the kids. But now, after everything, he claimed he saw things clearly, that he wanted our marriage, that I was the one he truly loved. Then, as if to prove his sincerity, he reached into his bag and pulled out a handful of glossy travel brochures. Italy. He held them out, saying that once we got through this, we could finally take the trip I had always dreamed of, just the two of us. I looked at him, my mind numb. He was offering me a vacation as if that could somehow undo the lies, the betrayal, the months of deception. Did he really think that waving my long held dream in front of me like a prize would be enough to fix what he had done? I took a deep breath and asked him point blank if he knew I had just met with Eliza. His face paled instantly. He hadn't expected it. I could see the panic in his eyes as he tried to recover, but it was too late. I pulled out my phone and showed him the screenshots Eliza had shared. His messages about missed opportunities, about wanting to see if they could make it work this time. For the first time since this all began, Tom completely broke down. He admitted everything. He called it a midlife crisis and said he had romanticized the past with Eliza and made terrible decisions. He swore it had never been physical, but he confessed that he had secretly been meeting her, texting her, and, worst of all, considering a future with her again. The birthday party and the Europe trip, those had been his way of testing the waters to see if there was still a spark between them. I listened, but I felt strangely detached. I wasn't angry. Not in that moment. I wasn't even sad. I just felt done. When he finally stopped talking, I told him I needed space and time to decide what I wanted to do next. I asked him to leave, and for once, he didn't argue. The next day, an email popped into my inbox, one I wasn't supposed to receive. It was from Tom's company's HR department. Apparently, they had mistaken my email for his and sent me details about his recent request for a job transfer to Atlanta. I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting. The transfer request had been submitted 2 weeks before Eliza's birthday party. Atlanta, where Eliza had moved for work last year, where Tom had always framed his trips as being solely for the kids. I forwarded the email to Tom with a single question. Were you planning to tell me about Atlanta before or after the Europe trip? So far, there's been no response. I've scheduled another meeting with my lawyer for tomorrow. As much as this hurts, I know one thing for certain now. I'm not going back. Some betrayals run too deep to be repaired. Strangely enough, I feel more at peace than I have in weeks. The uncertainty, the gaslighting, the lies, they were worse than the truth itself. And now that I have the truth, I can finally move forward. I'm looking for a more permanent place to live, and I'm seriously considering taking that trip to Italy on my own. Maybe it's time to start dreaming new dreams, ones that don't depend on someone else's promises. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.